Well, good Friday evening, mid-Missouri. Saturday is a weather alert day. We'll stay quiet tonight, and really tomorrow morning is a quiet start, but by late morning into the early afternoon, we'll call it noon for a round number. Noon through midnight, we'll have chances for severe storms. Those storms are most likely to bring us hail and damaging winds as threats. We can't rule out a tornado, but it's unlikely, I would say, tomorrow. Isolated damaging wind and hail risk is really, that's our main threat for Saturday. Can't rule out flooding either, but it does encompass all of mid-Missouri. Well, we all have this chance for storms. I would say north of I-70, maybe even more so than folks to the south, but we all have to be weather aware tomorrow. And it's because, well, we've got two rounds that we're tracking. Round number one is going to be a bit questionable. We're going to be in the spirit of full transparency here with the forecast. We're going to look at better energy moving in by the, we'll say, midday hours. Again, this is around noon. Moving in here from the west, those yellows and oranges, those light greens, that's where we're going to be tracking the best chance for storms. You can see that instability is best on the north side of the viewing area. To the south, we still have some, but again, we're going to be really eyeing, I think, the northern half of the viewing area. At this same time, we are likely going to be struggling to get storms to develop. That's because we're talking about a cap that's going to be in place over this. We're going to explain what that is here in just a second, but let's talk about round two. That's round one. Round two is going to come out ahead of this cold front later in the evening. Notice you're watching that storm energy shrink a little bit. What you're not seeing here is our winds. Our winds in the atmosphere are really picking up right out ahead of this cold front, and that may help trigger storms throughout the rest of the evening and into the overnight hours out ahead of the cold front. This is likely coming to an end a little after midnight as this cold front pushes through. We'll also be watching a little bit of activity from Iowa as well. There's still some potential that activity from Iowa could dive down here and eat into some of this Cape gradient. So there's really kind of two rounds that we're tracking. That early day round that's really dependent on that energy in the atmosphere, and then there's that second round that's tied to that wind out ahead of the cold front. But I mentioned the cap could limit round one. Here is what that is. It's a layer of warm air that kind of puts a lid on rising air near the surface. It rises, it finds air warmer than itself, and it just falls back down to the surface. If we break that cap, we get enough heating during the afternoon tomorrow, we could see storms go up. And that is the concern, because if that happens, those earlier afternoon storms could be on the strong to severe side. That's where we could see hail, damaging wind, and maybe even an isolated tornado. So here we are on Future Track. Tonight, again, it's quiet. Let's fast forward to early Saturday morning. We're starting dry, we're starting calm, temperatures in the 60 to 70 degree temperature range. As we head out into the midday hours, around noon, if you're still out, that's where we're talking about an isolated chance for storms. Again, we're going to have a lot of dry time on Saturday. The cap is looking like it's holding on this scenario of our ABC 17 storm track, Future Track. It doesn't like the idea of storms developing in the afternoon at all. It looks like it keeps us dry. That's the optimal solution. However, we know that that may not be the case. If we do see storms develop, they could be strong to severe. Now let's move on to round two. We're tracking potential for some activity off to our north and maybe even northeast that may dive southward through the overnight hours. That could pose a risk for some of us, especially in the eastern half of mid-Missouri. Again, this round, or this version of our Future Track, doesn't like the idea of popping storms just out ahead of the cold front. Again, that could change. That's something that the environment could support. Again, we try to bring this to you with as much full transparency as possible, understanding that, well, we could see storms develop even if that model particularly doesn't suggest that that could happen. Again, I mentioned the best chances for rain and storms overall is going to be on the northern half of mid-Missouri. This map really highlights that with the best chance for storms reflected by the better expected rain totals. Still, widespread, we're looking at most 1/4 of an inch. There are going to be some folks, I think, that get out of this without rain altogether. And that would be the scenario, especially where the cap holds on and we stay dry. Still, regardless of if we see storms or not, it is going to be hot and humid. Temperatures in the 90s with dew points in the upper 60s approaching 70 could result in a feels-like temperature near triple digits. It's going to be hot and humid. Sunday into Monday, we're a little cooler, but really not meaningfully so. It's still going to be warm, feeling like summer. Part of that is our dew points falling into the 50s before they climb back into the 60s heading into the middle part of next week. And yes, that does relate to better chances for storms by midweek. Again, slim chances for rain at this point. It really does look like our drought is hanging on for the time being.